You ever look at your life and think, damn, I really did it right? That was me. Every Saturday morning, I'd stand on my freshly edged driveway, coffee in one hand, weed trimmer in the other, staring out across my quarter-acre kingdom like I was some kind of suburban Caesar. The lawn? A flawless emerald carpet. The hedges? Sculpted like I'd had an affair with topiary. The house? White-paneled perfection with black shutters that matched my charcoal grill on the back deck. And Samantha, my wife of 8 years, she was the cherry on top. Gorgeous, smart, the type of woman who wore sundresses and turned heads at every damn barbecue. I used to catch other husbands watching her, sneaking glances when they thought I wasn't looking. I didn't blame them. She had this confidence, like she knew she was the hottest thing on the block, but didn't have to say it. We were the golden couple in a sea of beige marriages. At least, that's what I thought. It started on a Thursday. We were at one of those dreaded HOA meetings, fluorescent lights, lukewarm coffee, the hum of passive aggression thick in the air. Everyone sat in the community center's multi-purpose room pretending they cared about mailbox paint standards or whether Carl's son's Camaro was parked too close to the curb again. And then Greg walked in. Greg Monroe, HOA chairman, smirk permanently etched onto his smug face. The guy had a tan like he took conference calls from a tanning bed, and teeth too white to be trusted. He always wore those button-down shirts with the sleeves rolled just right, the kind of guy who called women darling and made it work. Samantha laughed a little too loud at one of his jokes that night. Something about trimming hedges, ironically enough. I caught the way he leaned in when he talked to her, his hand grazing her back as he brushed past. The kind of touch you could write off as innocent, unless you knew what to look for. I saw it, but I didn't say anything. Didn't want to seem like that husband. Later that night, we were brushing our teeth side by side in the master bathroom. She was humming to herself, glancing at her phone between spits. What was Greg saying to you after the meeting? I asked, casual. She didn't miss a beat. Nothing important. Just about the new landscaping rules. Landscaping. Right. I let it go. Maybe I shouldn't have. The first real crack in the illusion came a week later. I was pruning the rose bushes out front when Samantha's phone buzzed on the porch rail. Normally, she kept that thing clutched tighter than a teenager during finals week, but she'd gone inside to grab lemonade. I glanced at the screen. Greg Monroe, can't stop thinking about your smile. You busy later? My stomach didn't drop. Not yet. I told myself it was a misunderstanding. I even tried to believe it. Maybe he sent it to the wrong person. Maybe it was some weird joke. I wanted to laugh it off, but the laugh stuck in my throat like gravel. That night, in bed, she curled against me like she always had. Familiar. Warm. Safe. She smelled like vanilla and dryer sheets. But all I could see was that text. Still, I didn't ask. Not yet. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Samantha had never given me a reason not to trust her. Sure, she'd been a little distant lately. More time on her phone. Less time in our bed. But we were adults. Stress happened. Life got busy. It was probably just a phase. Denial can be comforting. Until it isn't. The late-night texts became more frequent. Quick flashes of light across the sheets. The soft ding of a message she'd pretend not to hear. Sometimes she'd giggle quietly and turn her back to me, her screen angled away like it was part of some secret game. I watched it all unfold like I was outside my own life, like someone else was living it for me. But I didn't move. I didn't confront. Not yet. I waited. I watched. That's the thing about me. I don't lose my temper. I don't break things. I build. I observe. I plan. So I started paying closer attention to her moods, her schedule, her texts, Greg's smug glances whenever we crossed paths, the way Samantha suddenly had yoga nights she never used to have, the subtle scent of a different cologne when she hugged me hello. And that's when I knew. It wasn't just paranoia. It wasn't just my imagination. It was real. My perfect life, the lawn, the house, the marriage, it was already crumbling beneath my feet. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to make damn sure that if Greg Monroe wanted to play house in my neighborhood, he was about to get a taste of reality. A reality he wasn't ready for. Samantha started spending a lot more time in the garden. Ironic, right? She never gave a damn about weeds before, but suddenly, she was all about succulents and native ground cover. She'd crouch in tight yoga pants, dirt under her fingernails, sweat gleaming on her neck, her phone nearby, screen dimmed, face down. And me? I played the part. Helpful husband. Watching from the kitchen window, drinking my coffee, letting the picture burn itself into my brain. The perfect scene of domestic tranquility. With one detail wrong. Her. She wasn't present anymore. Not really. Conversations became shorter. Her touches became rarer. And if she did kiss me, it was robotic. A tap of lips, like an obligation. Like she was cashing in an expired coupon. I told myself to wait. To gather proof. No accusations. Not until I knew. But sometimes the signs weren't subtle. Like the Wednesday afternoon I got home early from work. Samantha was in the kitchen, back turned to me, hair up, apron on, humming softly. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't hear it. I did. I didn't touch it. Not then. But I did notice the name. Just G. No last name. No emoji. No contact photo. Just the letter. Simple. Anonymous. Obvious. It was insulting, really. Later that night, when I kissed her neck, she flinched. Her body tensed before I even touched her. And when she noticed my hesitation, she smiled like she could just pretend her way through it. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Just tired. I nodded, pretending not to feel the weight of her lie pressed down on the bed between us. But the turning point came a few days later, and it wasn't subtle. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even dramatic. It was a fucking letter. I found it stuffed behind a stack of old magazines in the garage. A manila envelope, weathered, but with an unmistakable HOA seal in the corner. I nearly tossed it out until I noticed it had our address but not my name. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a notice of violation, unapproved lawn ornamentation, improper bin storage, and some vague nonsense about fence line encroachment. The violations themselves weren't serious, but what hit me hard was the signature, or lack thereof. There was no name, just a line that said HOA Chair, Enforcement Summary in a generic serif font. But the paper, it smelled like something. Cologne. Not cheap body spray, not soap, not deodorant. No, it was Greg's. That heavy citrusy scent with musky undertones. The kind that lingered too long and tried too hard. I'd smelled it on him at meetings. On Samantha's coat once. Hell, I even smelled it once in our bathroom, faint but unmistakable, lingering like a ghost. And now it was seeping from an unsigned violation letter? That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Samantha and Greg. This was about control. About dominance. He was marking his territory in subtle, smug ways. It wasn't enough that he might be screwing my wife. Now he wanted to find me for my garbage bins. That night, I put the letter on the kitchen table and waited for her to notice. She walked in, fresh from yoga, face flushed, wearing those tight black leggings she'd only recently taken out of storage. The kind she used to wear for me. Her eyes fell on the letter. She froze for just half a second. Just enough. What's this? I asked, tapping the envelope. She shrugged too quickly. Oh, I meant to tell you. Some dumb HOA thing. Why didn't you? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she busied herself with opening the fridge. It wasn't a big deal. I was going to fix it. But you didn't sign up for any meetings. You didn't ask me. And this, I held the letter up, smells like Greg. Her back was to me. Still. She laughed, too forced. That's ridiculous. Is it? She spun around, eyes wide. Jesus, Ethan, are you sniffing mail now? I'm reading what's between the lines. She crossed her arms, something defensive sparking in her gaze. It's just a letter. No, I said slowly. It's a warning. You just don't know what it's about yet. For a second, I could see the flicker of fear behind her irritation. Then she slipped the mask back on and smirked. You're being paranoid. Maybe, I said. But if I am, it's only because someone's giving me reasons to be. She didn't say anything after that. She just walked upstairs. The next day, the letter was gone. She didn't mention it. Neither did I. Because the moment you start explaining, you lose power. And I wasn't going to lose another inch of it. Instead, I sat in my home office that night, and while Samantha texted God knows who from the bedroom, I ordered something online. Something small. Discreet. A motion-activated driveway camera. Because I knew the truth was close. Close enough to taste. And soon, I wouldn't need her to confess anything. Because the camera? The camera wouldn't lie. There's a special kind of silence that comes when you stop hoping. It's not sadness. Not rage. It's clarity. That was me the night I set up the camera. I waited until Samantha was asleep, fake as hell sleep, mind you, complete with conveniently timed snores she never used to have, then slipped outside with the tiny box in my hand. The camera was nothing fancy. Black, matte, compact enough to hide in the overhang above the garage. Motion activated, night vision capable, streaming directly to my phone. It pointed straight at the driveway. More importantly, at the street. If Samantha was sneaking out, I'd know. If Greg Monroe's Lexus ever pulled up to my curb again, I'd have footage. No more suspicions. No more guessing games. I was going to catch them in the act. The next few nights were quiet. Almost too quiet. Samantha still left for her late yoga sessions. Still came back smelling like citrus and smugness. Still avoided sex, conversation, eye contact. But Greg's car never showed. Not yet. And then came Friday. I pretended to be passed out on the couch when she left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even twitch when she called out, "Be back in an hour," like she was heading to the store for milk instead of to another man's lap. I waited 10 minutes, then slipped into my office and opened the live feed. At first, nothing. Then movement. The camera caught the glint of headlights rounding the corner. Greg's car. Same midnight blue Lexus with the stupid vanity plate. Greg wins. I watched him park just past the mailbox, not even bothering to hide the car around the block. Bold. Arrogant. Like this was routine. Samantha appeared in the frame a moment later. She wore the same damn leggings and tight black hoodie from the last 3 nights, her hair pulled up in a way she knew I liked, except this time, it wasn't for me. She didn't hesitate. No glance back at the house. No guilt in her step. She opened the passenger door, slid in, and just like that, they were gone. No kiss goodbye. No pause. Just gone. And me? I didn't throw my phone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow or punch a wall. I just sat there, watching the empty driveway, letting the silence settle into my bones. It wasn't denial anymore. It wasn't even rage. It was confirmation. The next morning, Samantha acted like everything was normal. She made coffee. She played music. She hummed while scrolling on her phone, probably texting Greg beneath the table. I watched her with new eyes. I noticed things I'd ignored before, how she always turned her phone screen away when I walked past, how she never let it out of arm's reach, how she smiled at it like it was whispering secrets. I also noticed how she avoided touching me entirely. Not a hug, not a brush of fingers, not a damn thing. So how was yoga? I asked over breakfast, watching her closely. She looked up, startled for just a beat. Good. Intense. Still doing vinyas? She nodded quickly. Yeah, lots of core work. I stirred my coffee. You must be getting strong. She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. Trying to be. I wanted to laugh. Strong? No. She was afraid. She just didn't know it yet. Because I had the footage. And it was just the beginning. Over the next week, I collected timestamps. Screen recordings. Every time she left the house after dark, every time that Lexus showed up, I logged it. I created a folder. Labeled it HOA evidence, private. Samantha kept lying. Kept running errands. Kept meeting Kim for wine. Greg kept picking her up. And I kept watching. But I wasn't just collecting data, I was studying them. I watched how Samantha moved around him. The way she leaned in at the passenger door. The way she flipped her hair before sliding in. I knew that flip. She used to do it for me before our first dates, before we had sex in the back seat of my Civic under the stars. Now she did it for him. At night, I lay next to her, our backs not even touching, and planned. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted precision. So I dug deeper. I pulled HOA meeting rosters from the past year. Greg had signed Samantha and under her name for 3 sessions she hadn't even mentioned to me. I checked her calendar. She'd marked those nights as girls' night. Subtle, but stupid. Eventually, even the best liars get sloppy. By Thursday, I had enough footage to destroy both their reputations in the neighborhood. But I wasn't going to go nuclear just yet. No, I wanted it to sting. Not like a slap. Like a scalpel. Sharp, deliberate, unforgettable. So when I saw Claire Monroe, Greg's wife, at the weekend community book club sign-up, I smiled. That's when the next phase of the plan clicked into place. Samantha was out shopping. Claire stood beside a folding table, handing out sign-up forms like she had better things to do. Because she probably did. But I walked up anyway. She didn't look up until I spoke. Put me down for the book club, I said. Claire raised an eyebrow, scanning me. Didn't take you for the reading type? Only the good stuff, I replied with a half-smile. She studied me for a second too long. Then, with the faintest smirk, she handed me a pen. I signed my name in the last open slot. Claire didn't say anything else, but her eyes lingered on mine as I handed the pen back. And in that moment, I knew she knew something. And I knew she wanted in. Claire Monroe had the kind of presence that made people step out of her way. She was the opposite of Samantha, cool, composed, always dressed like she might sue someone for sport. Pencil skirts, heels sharp enough to draw blood, and eyes that said, "I see more than I say." At the book club sign-up booth, her smirk didn't linger, but the impression it left did. I walked away with a blank registration pamphlet and the quiet suspicion that she saw straight through me. 2 days later, I got my first club email. Subject line, "Welcome to the Little Pines Community Book Circle." Sent by none other than Claire Monroe. The message was short, efficient, and not overly friendly. "Ethan, welcome. Next meeting is at my house, Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're reading The Silent Wife." Seemed appropriate. Claire. I couldn't help but grin at the title. That woman didn't do subtle by accident. Samantha was folding laundry in the other room, humming along to some Spotify playlist. I watched her for a moment, the way she folded each shirt with mechanical precision, like she was building a life she no longer believed in. "Claire's hosting book club," I said casually. She didn't even look up. "That's nice." I signed up. Now she paused, a shirt halfway folded. "You." I nodded slowly. Thought it'd be fun. Bit of community involvement. She turned to me, trying to smile. "Didn't know you were into books." I shrugged. "Only the good stuff." She held my gaze a little longer than necessary, then went back to folding. That night, while she took another mysterious, hot yoga shower and spent 20 minutes doing God knows what in the walk-in closet, I watched my camera feed. Same routine. Greg's Lexus pulled up. She slipped into the passenger seat without a word. Off they went. I watched them drive away, knowing full well that while she was off bending her marriage into excuses, I was rewriting the script. Wednesday night came fast. I shaved a little closer than usual. Wore my navy button-down, not too formal, not too casual. Just enough to suggest I gave a damn. When I walked into Claire's house, I didn't feel nervous. I felt prepared. Her place was immaculate. Marble counters. White furniture that no one with pets or children would dare own. A fire crackled softly in the background, more for ambience than heat. A dozen neighbors sipped wine and chatted about their latest reads. All smiles and suburban secrets. Claire appeared beside me like smoke. "Ethan," she said, handing me a glass of red. "Glad you made it. Wouldn't miss it." She tilted her head. "Your wife couldn't come?" "She's preoccupied lately." Claire raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Aren't we all?" We sat in a semicircle as someone launched into a passionate opinion about the book's ending. I half listened, nodding when appropriate, occasionally glancing at Claire. She wasn't pretending to care, she was scanning the room, like she was conducting a quiet autopsy of every marriage present. When the discussion wrapped up and neighbors began trickling out, Claire lingered near the bookshelf. I approached slowly. "Thanks for hosting," I said. "You're welcome," she replied, sipping her wine. Silent Wife was a good choice. She smiled faintly. I thought it might resonate with the group. I let that sit for a moment. Then, quietly, "You picked it for the irony." She didn't look surprised. "You always this observant?" "Only when it matters." She turned to face me fully. "So what matters to you right now, Ethan?" "Truth," I said. "And maybe leverage." She tilted her head, studying me. "Then you already know, don't you?" I met her gaze. "Do you?" Claire gave a soft, humorless laugh. "Of course. I've known for months." Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "He changes his cologne when he cheats. Did you know that?" "Thinks I won't notice. But it always lingers. Like guilt in a bottle." We stood there, two betrayed spouses in a house too perfect for the truths it held. "I installed a camera," I admitted. "Caught them." Claire nodded, unsurprised. "And yet here you are. Not divorced. Not furious." "I'm patient," I said. "Planning." She sipped her wine again. "Good. Then we're the same kind of dangerous." That word, "we," hung between us like an invitation. She set her glass down. "You free Friday night?" I raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "I'm hosting a small get-together. Just neighbors. Couples. A few surprises. You should come." "What about Samantha?" She leaned in, voice like silk. "Bring her. Let's see how well she plays hostess when she's not in control." I grinned. "Sounds fun." Claire stepped closer, just enough that I could feel the heat off her body. Her perfume was subtle, warm, expensive, mature. "She won't know what hit her," she whispered. Neither would Greg. I walked out of Claire's house that night not just with a book club sign-up, but with something far more dangerous. An ally. The following Friday, I watched Samantha prepare for Claire's party like nothing was wrong. She wore her favorite cocktail dress, deep emerald, hugging just enough without advertising it. She asked if her lipstick looked too dark. I said it was perfect. She smiled like she believed me. That smile used to mean something. Now, it was just theater. I wore black, button-down, fitted slacks. Not loud, not flashy, but clean and confident. Claire would notice. We walked the 2 blocks to the Monroe's house, and Samantha's heels clicked against the concrete like a countdown. Claire's door opened before we knocked. "Welcome," she said to Samantha, her smile flawless. "Glad you could make it." She barely spared me a glance, but her fingers brushed mine for a fraction of a second when she passed the champagne flutes. "Thanks for inviting us," Samantha said, already sliding into performance mode. Inside, the house looked magazine perfect. Soft jazz played low. White lights glowed from every corner. The scent of cinnamon and white wine drifted through the air. Claire hosted like a pro, moving between conversations, laughing lightly, letting people orbit her. Greg showed up late, of course. His cologne hit the room like a slap. Samantha didn't flinch, but I saw it, the quick flick of her eyes. A subtle nod between them. Practiced and pathetic. I didn't react. I sipped my drink. I smiled. Claire watched it all. Halfway through the evening, I found myself alone with her in the kitchen, helping refill the charcuterie board. Our hands moved over the marble counter, brushing now and then, accidentally at first. Then not so accidentally. "Your wife's nervous," Claire said without turning. "She should be." Her fingers lingered on mine as she reached for the goat cheese. "Greg hasn't looked this unsettled in months," she added. "Good. I hope the wine's bitter on his tongue." Claire smiled faintly. "Do you like the feeling?" "What?" "The power shift." I looked at her. More than I should. She didn't look away. Good. We stood close, the kind of close that defied explanation if anyone walked in. She smelled like vanilla and dry white wine. Her dress was black silk, backless, with a high neckline that only made it sexier. "How long have you known?" I asked quietly. "Long enough," she said, her voice low. "Long enough to stop crying about it." I nodded. "Me too." Claire placed a fig on the tray, her fingers moving with calm precision. "You're not the man I thought you were." "Oh, you're patient, controlled, smart, disappointed, turned on." She said it flat. No smile, no smirk, just fact. My heart thudded once, hard in my chest. Her eyes flicked to the hallway. "Follow me," she said softly. We slipped away from the noise, from the guests, into a side room dimly lit and lined with books. I heard laughter from the backyard as Claire closed the door. Inside the room, it was quiet. She leaned against the edge of her writing desk, her fingers resting lightly on the polished wood. "You don't have to say anything," she said. "I just wanted to know if we're aligned." I stepped closer. Not too close, but enough. "We are." She tilted her head. "And if we did something reckless?" My breath caught. "It wouldn't be reckless," I said. She stepped into me then, slow, deliberate, stopping inches from my chest. I could smell her skin, feel the heat radiating off her body. Her hand brushed my wrist, lingering at my pulse point. I didn't move, not because I was hesitant, but because the tension was exquisite. She leaned in, her lips near my ear. "I've imagined kissing you since last week." My voice came out low. "I've imagined more than that." She pulled back, her eyes dark. "Then let's make them imagine, too." And just like that, she stepped away, smoothed her dress, picked up the empty wine glass. "I'll see you outside," she said, calm as ever. She left me there with my heart hammering and my fist clenched, not from frustration, but anticipation. By the time I rejoined the party, she was already laughing at something Greg said, her eyes cold, her hand resting just a little too easily on my arm when I passed. Samantha saw it. Her smile faltered. Greg noticed too. For the first time, his confidence cracked. The party thinned by midnight. As we said our goodbyes, Claire leaned into Samantha with a light hug. "You have a wonderful husband," she said sweetly. "He's very composed." Samantha's smile twitched. "He is." Claire turned to me. "See you at the next meeting, Ethan." "I'll be there." As we walked home, Samantha kept glancing at me. "You seemed close to Claire tonight." I shrugged. "She's interesting. She's cold." "Maybe. But she notices things." Samantha said nothing else, but her hand found mine halfway down the block. I didn't pull away. Not yet. But in my chest, I could already feel something shifting. And Samantha knew it. The power was mine now, and I wasn't done using it. Claire waited exactly 3 days before making her next move. It came in the form of a text, late in the afternoon while I was trimming the hedges. "Claire, got that book you wanted to borrow. Want to come by tonight?" No emojis. No flirtation. Just plain words loaded with intent. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, "Me, 7 work for you?" Her reply came instantly. "Perfect." I told Samantha I was heading out for a walk. She didn't ask where, didn't look up from her phone, just mumbled, "Don't forget trash days tomorrow." Claire's house was quiet when I knocked. She answered the door barefoot, in fitted black leggings and a loose, off-the-shoulder sweater that revealed a delicate collarbone and just enough skin to stoke memory. "You made it," she said, stepping aside. "I wanted that book." She smirked, her eyes scanning my face. Of course. She led me into the same reading room we'd shared wine in just nights ago. A single lamp cast a warm glow across the shelves. On the desk sat a novel, Reckless Hearts, its cover tastefully erotic, its pages worn at the corners. "You seriously reading this?" I asked, lifting it. Claire stepped close behind me. "Some truths are best hidden in fiction." I turned. She was a foot away. Closer than necessary. Close enough to smell the vanilla again. "I know about them," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Samantha and Greg. I've known." I nodded slowly. "I figured. I didn't just invite you to that book club to stir the pot." "No." She took the book from my hand and set it down. Her fingers brushed mine again, longer this time. "Intentional. I wanted to see you." "Why?" She stared at me, those calm, calculating eyes flickering. "Because you're not stupid. And because you're not passive." "I'm also married," I said, more from habit than conviction. "So am I," she replied, stepping even closer, her chest brushing mine. "But they broke the contract. We're just repurposing the ruins." I reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You think this'll fix something?" She smiled. "I don't want to fix it." The kiss came naturally. No hesitation. No guilt. Just fire. Her mouth was soft and urgent, the kind of kiss that melted years of frustration in seconds. My hands found her hips. Hers slid up under my shirt, tracing the line of my back. It didn't feel wrong. It felt overdue. We moved together in quiet bursts, the room dim and pulsing with a rhythm we hadn't rehearsed, but instinctively knew. Her sweater slid off. My shirt hit the floor. For a moment, we just stood there, breathing hard, her eyes dark and unreadable. "I want you to feel something again," she whispered. "I am." The sex wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was reclamation. Every gasp, every claw of her nails down my back was a rewrite of the story our spouses had hijacked. And it wasn't just physical, it was precision, deliberate, mutual. When it was over, we lay together on the soft reading rug, tangled and quiet. Claire stared at the ceiling. "You're not the type to do this lightly." "No," I said, "but I also don't ignore being underestimated." She turned toward me. "What are you going to do next?" "Not sure. But it starts with letting them squirm." Claire smiled, draping an arm across her stomach. "Good. Let them feel the weight of their choices." I sat up slowly, gathering my shirt. "Does Greg suspect anything?" "He's too arrogant to notice." "Same with Samantha." Claire's eyes found mine again. "So we keep playing." "Until what?" She leaned forward and kissed my shoulder. "Until it stops being necessary." I left her house after midnight. The streets were silent. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, a message from Samantha. "Samantha, did you take your keys?" I locked up. That was it. No suspicion. No warmth. Just domestic duty dressed up as intimacy. I stared at the message and laughed quietly. She was so busy trying to live in the shadows that she didn't notice I'd already stepped into the light. When I got home, she was asleep. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching her. She curled around her pillow like a child. Peaceful. Undeserving. I didn't hate her, but I no longer saw her as mine. I undressed in silence and slipped into bed, staring at the ceiling. Claire had been right. Some truths live best in fiction. But the best revenge? It's nonfiction written in real time. And I had just started chapter 1. It's amazing how quickly things begin to feel normal, even when they're not. Claire and I kept our distance in public. We never texted anything incriminating. We never touched where eyes might see. But every time I passed her in the neighborhood, every time I saw her walking her dog or pulling into her driveway, our eyes met. Brief, hot, heavy with things we weren't saying. Samantha, meanwhile, had started to notice the shift in me. She didn't say it outright. She wasn't ready to ask questions she didn't want answers to. But she felt it. I didn't chase her anymore. I didn't ask where she was going or when she'd be back. I didn't offer hugs in the kitchen or brush her hip as I passed her in the hallway. And that drove her crazy. She tried to re-engage one night. Walked into the bedroom in an old college hoodie and just panties, a move she hadn't pulled in years. "You staying up?" she asked, voice soft, coy. I glanced at her. Took a beat. Got work in the morning, I said, flat as glass. Then rolled over. She stood there in the doorway longer than necessary. I didn't look back. Let her feel it. Let her wonder. 2 days later, we had another HOA meeting. That's when the real tension began to leak into the open. It was held in the community center like usual, the kind of place where paint dries faster than people reach consensus. I showed up 5 minutes early, just as Claire was arranging pamphlets on the folding table. She looked up, smiled, polite, unreadable, and offered me a chair beside hers. Greg arrived 10 minutes late. With Samantha. Not walking together, of course. No, they were too smart for that. But within seconds of entering, they did that little orbit again. Like magnets pretending they weren't pulling toward each other. Claire's gaze drifted to them, then to me. Her lips curled ever so slightly. We sat through the usual neighborhood nonsense. Recycling protocols, yard height maximums, the upcoming block party logistics. Claire took minutes. Greg tried to speak with authority. Samantha offered to help organize the food. And me? I sat quietly, smiling, watching. Midway through the meeting, I raised my hand. Greg looked startled. Ethan? I propose we add a rule about overnight parking. Maybe a tighter limit. 2 hours maximum for non-residents. Claire didn't even pause. Seconded. Greg blinked. Well, I'm not sure that's necessary. I smiled. You sure? There've been a lot of unfamiliar cars on our street lately. Some of them seem to stick around after dark. Claire's pen stopped scribbling. Her eyes locked with mine. Greg cleared his throat. Let's, revisit that next session. Of course, I said. No rush. Samantha wouldn't meet my gaze. After the meeting, I lingered just long enough to make things awkward. Claire stood beside me, stacking chairs with graceful efficiency. Samantha approached, forcing a smile. Hey, you okay? Never better, I said. She hesitated. You were quiet tonight. I listened. To what? To everything. She looked like she wanted to say more, but Greg called her name. She turned away, her hand clenching the strap of her purse. Claire glanced over at me once the room emptied. That was fun, wasn't it? She nudged a folded meeting agenda toward me. I opened it. Inside was a sticky note in neat, clean handwriting. He's sweating. She's spinning. We're winning. I smiled and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The next day, Samantha tried again. I came home to dinner waiting, rosemary chicken, wine, candles. The whole scene so obviously choreographed it felt like a dress rehearsal for guilt. You did all this? I asked, stepping inside. She smiled too quickly. Thought we could have a night. Just us. I pulled off my coat. Saturday. We ate. We drank. We talked surface level, polite, rehearsed. She leaned in a little, touched my wrist when I refilled her wine. You've been quiet lately, she said. Have I? She nodded. Like, distracted. Like something's changed. I tilted my head. That bother you? Her voice faltered. I just want to make sure we're okay. I smiled, but didn't reach for her. We're fine. We weren't. But she didn't press. Because if she did, the facade would shatter, and she needed the illusion more than I did. Later that night, I watched the camera feed again. No Greg. Not that night. She stayed in. Maybe because she felt the balance shifting. Maybe because she was starting to understand that I wasn't the fool she'd imagined me to be. Or maybe she was trying to reclaim me. But it was too late for that. Because while she was busy circling the drain of her affair, I was already swimming in deeper water. And Claire? Claire was already planning the next move. The block party was supposed to be a celebration of unity. Grills flared, kids squealed, paper lanterns swung lazily from tree branches. It was the kind of evening where everyone pretended they were happy, that their mortgages were manageable, and their marriages intact. But underneath the neighborly music and grilled bratwurst, a different tension simmered. Claire and I had timed it to perfection. I arrived separately. Samantha left before me, carrying her famous pasta salad, dressed in that red sundress she knew drew stares. But I knew better now. It wasn't for me anymore. It hadn't been in a long time. Claire arrived 15 minutes later. Not with Greg, of course, but alone, glowing, dangerous in a slate gray halter dress that whispered against her skin with every step. Heads turned. They always did with her. But this time, she wasn't just commanding attention. She was sending a message. Greg showed up with his usual pomp, wearing khakis, boat shoes, a too-tight polo. He greeted everyone like a senator at a town hall. His hand landed a little too long on Samantha's lower back. She didn't flinch. She never flinched now. But this time, I didn't either. Claire moved through the crowd with the ease of someone who knew how to play the long game. At one point, she and I crossed paths near the drinks table. "Try the sangria," she said, her voice low, her eyes unreadable. "Only if you pour it." She did. Our fingers touched as she handed me the cup. Just a moment too long. Just enough. That was all it took. Greg saw it. I could feel his eyes narrow from across the lawn. It didn't stop there. Over the next hour, Claire and I made an art out of subtle rebellion. She laughed at a joke I whispered too close to her ear. I brushed a leaf from her shoulder with the kind of care that would make any watching wife's stomach knot. And Samantha noticed. She didn't say anything, not yet. But the tension in her jaw, the way she kept glancing over every time Claire leaned in a little too much, was all the confirmation I needed. She could sense it, control slipping, the world tilting. At one point, while the sun dipped low and the kids were chasing bubbles down the sidewalk, Claire and I ended up in the side yard of the Thompsons' house. A quiet pocket just off the main drag. She handed me a drink, her fingers brushing mine again. "Think he knows?" she asked, sipping casually. "Greg." I smirked. "He's pretending he doesn't." And her. She's pretending harder. Claire stepped closer. What happens when the pretending stops? Then it gets interesting. Her eyes sparkled like ice over fire. I like interesting. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. We didn't need to. The moment itself was charged enough to draw lightning. When we rejoined the crowd, Samantha was waiting. She stood near the snack table, arms folded, eyes locked on mine. "Hey," she said flatly. "Hey. Have fun wandering. Just catching up." She tilted her head, smile brittle. "With Claire." I let the question hang. "She's sharp," I said. "Interesting conversations." Her lips twitched. "Interesting, huh?" I sipped my drink. "Didn't realize that made you jealous." "I'm not jealous," she said a little too quickly. "Of course not," I said. "Why would you be?" Her stare hardened. Game, set, match. And then Greg appeared beside her, placing a possessive hand on her shoulder, like some insecure caveman marking his territory. Claire, now across the lawn, caught the gesture. She raised her glass, subtle, slow, and toasted me. I returned it. Greg followed my line of sight, watched me clink the rim of my solo cup against air, then turned to see Claire smiling at me. And for the first time, he looked like a man terrified he might lose something. He whispered something to Samantha. She blinked. Her head turned sharply toward me. Then he walked off. She stepped forward, lips tight. "What's going on, Ethan?" "Enjoying the party." "That's not what I mean." I leaned in, just enough to make her lean back. "I don't think you want to have this conversation here." Her mouth opened, closed. She looked around. Too many neighbors. Too many smiles hiding too many years. I walked away. Found Claire again near the backyard fire pit. She sat casually on a bench, firelight dancing in her eyes. "He looked like he might pop a blood vessel," she said, sipping from her wine. "Good. What now?" I sat beside her, not too close. Just enough to feel the warmth. "Now we let them spiral. And us." I looked at her. "We stay calm." She nodded once, slow, then smiled. For the rest of the night, Samantha hovered, waiting for me to look guilty. Greg lingered around Claire, desperate for a sign of possession. Neither of us gave them one, because now the fire was lit, and we had no intention of putting it out. It happened on a Tuesday. Fitting, really. The kind of ordinary weekday where people expect traffic, emails, takeout, not their lives coming apart. Samantha came home from work wearing that carefully put-together look she used when she wanted something. Hair down in soft waves. A bit of perfume she hadn't worn in weeks. Her voice was sugary, but the eyes gave her away. "I picked up wine," she said, placing the bottle on the counter. "Figure we could talk." I glanced at her from the living room. "About what?" She hesitated just long enough to confirm everything I suspected. "Us," she said. "Lately. I feel like something's off." I set down my tablet, gave her my full attention. "Something's definitely off." She leaned on the counter. "Then let's fix it. Maybe take a weekend. Just the two of us?" "Get away," reset. I stood slowly, walked into the kitchen. She straightened as I approached. "What happened to all the yoga weekends?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "You know, the ones where you'd come back sore, glowing, and smelling like Greg Monroe's cologne." Her smile faltered. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "I gave you time," I said. I watched. I waited. I gave you room to either come clean or come home. You did neither. Ethan, she began. I held up a hand. Calm. Quiet. Don't lie now. We're past that. Her throat worked. It wasn't. It didn't mean. Don't insult both of us. Silence stretched. Then, how long have you known? Since the HOA violation letter. The one that smelled like Greg's overpriced arrogance. She looked down. It was a mistake. No. Mistakes are spontaneous. This was a pattern. A choice. Her eyes started to glisten, but I felt nothing. I want to fix this, she whispered. We can fix this. No, I said softly. You don't want to fix it. You want to avoid consequence. I turned, walked to my desk drawer, and pulled out the manila envelope. The same kind they used for HOA minutes. Fitting. I handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside, divorce papers. She paled. You already. I had them drawn up a week ago. Her hands trembled. You were never going to tell me? I was waiting for the right moment, I said. And it's now. She looked at the envelope like it had venom on it. You think this is fair? No, I said. Fair would have been honesty. You traded our marriage for attention. For secrecy. And when I stopped chasing you, that's when you started noticing something was wrong. She looked up sharply. What about you? What about me? You've been cold. Distant. Different. I smiled. Funny. That's how you were for 6 months. She folded her arms. So what? This is revenge? No, I said. This is clarity. Her voice rose. And Claire? That's just a coincidence. I met her glare. Unwavering. She understands a lot about betrayal. Probably more than you. Did you sleep with her? I didn't answer. Samantha's face hardened. I can't believe you'd throw everything away. I took a slow step toward her. You threw it. I'm just cleaning up the mess. The front door opened suddenly. Claire stepped in, heels echoing like punctuation. I hadn't planned on her arriving mid-confrontation, but the timing was poetry. Samantha turned, startled. What the hell is she doing here? Claire gave her the kind of smile only a woman who's already won can manage. He asked me to come by. HOA minutes. You know how it is. Samantha's eyes darted between us. This is a joke. No, I said. This is reality. Claire stepped beside me, handing me a folder, an actual HOA proposal we drafted the night before, over drinks and quiet laughter. I also brought this, she said. Perfect, I replied. Samantha was trembling now. You two deserve each other, she spat. Maybe, I said, but at least we're honest. The words landed like a slap. She stormed toward the door, papers still clutched in hand. I'm not signing anything, she hissed. You will, I said. Greg's not going to protect you from this. Not after what Claire found in his phone. That stopped her cold. What? Claire tilted her head. You're not the only one who gets sloppy, Samantha. She left without another word. The door slammed behind her. Silence returned. Claire poured 2 glasses of wine without comment. Handed me one. You handled that well, she said. Years of practice. We clinked glasses. I didn't lie to her, I said. Claire nodded. You didn't need to. Outside, the street lights flickered on. We stood there in our quiet victory. Not smug. Not gloating. Just finished. It took exactly 23 days after the divorce papers landed in Samantha's hands for everything to unravel publicly. Greg stepped down first. Officially, it was due to personal obligations, but everyone in the neighborhood knew. Word had traveled faster than a weed notice in spring. Claire never said a word directly, but she didn't have to. Screenshots of Greg's messages surfaced in 3 group chats. At least 2 of them included pictures. One featured Samantha. Tastefully blurred, but unmistakable. By the next HOA meeting, the air was different. Claire sat where she always did, not as the chair's wife, but as the new HOA secretary. Nominated unanimously. Greg wasn't even in the room. I stood at the front, clipboard in hand. A new nameplate with Ethan Caldwell. Interim chair sat in front of me. The gavel felt heavy, but good in my hand. Let's bring some order to this place, I said, smiling. A few chuckles. A few nods. Claire's mouth twitched. That almost smile of hers had grown warmer these days. Not soft, but sincere. There was a difference. After the meeting, people filtered out slowly. A few stayed behind to offer congratulations. Samantha didn't show. She'd moved into a rental across town while things settled. I hadn't spoken to her since she signed the papers, reluctantly, bitterly, but without contest. We were done. The ring I used to wear? Still in a drawer. Still warm when I touch it, like memory. Claire and I walked the neighborhood that night. Cool breeze, porch lights glowing across tidy lawns. The same streets I once patrolled with a trimmer in one hand and denial in the other. You look good holding power, she said. I smiled. You look good beside it. She glanced at me. So what now? I thought about it. About everything. I keep the lawn tidy. Maintain order. Enjoy the silence. She raised an eyebrow. And me? You? I said. Keep walking with me. We didn't label it. That wasn't the point. It wasn't about vengeance anymore, or balance, or punishment. It was about peace. The kind that comes when you know the worst is behind you. At the next weekend HOA picnic, we showed up together. No announcement. No explanation. Just two people sharing a lawn chair and a bottle of sparkling water. We talked about irrigation and neighbor complaints, and what kind of tree to plant near the clubhouse. Mundane things. Easy things. Greg was gone. Samantha avoided the area entirely now. But the neighborhood? The neighborhood had changed. And they looked at me differently. Not with sympathy. With respect. Because I hadn't screamed. I hadn't imploded. I hadn't given them a spectacle. I gave them structure. And I gave myself closure. Funny how betrayal becomes a blueprint when you treat it like a renovation. Strip the rot. Sand down the jagged edges. Reinforce the foundation. Replace what's broken. And maybe leave a space for something better. Claire nudged my arm with hers as a kid sprinted past, laughing. You ever miss the way things were? No, I said, watching the sunlight filter through the trees. I like the way they're going. We sat there, the two of us, watching suburban order unfold beneath the hum of summer cicadas. Not as revenge. Not as restitution. Just two people who knew what it cost to lose everything and still chose to build something new. Together.